Anil, were you able to listen to that recording or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Imran. Thank you for that.
I think you just need a software. You can check with your Google Store or Play Store or something, and you can play it even without downloading it.
Okay.
Which laptop you use? Do you use Apple, MacBook,
I use HP.
HP? Okay, should have. Okay. All right. So today is 19th. Okay, guys, my email ID. This is my email ID, and today I'll be sharing readings as well for this lecture, day 1 and day 2. And this is the email ID. You should be sending all the communication through this, and I'll be also using this one. Okay. So today's lecture is going to be on software development lifecycle. This is basically the approach or method which is used to design any application, enhance any application, or do re-engineering on that application. So anything in terms of IT that has to go through this life cycle, that is called software development life cycle. And there are two major approaches which are currently being used, and I'll give you numbers as well, what is happening in terms of how many projects are happening in this environment and how many projects are happening in that environment. So one is your traditional method. Another one is called iterative method. Let me see. Okay. All right. But generally, both these approaches are going to utilize same steps of software development lifecycle. In general, software development lifecycle have 7 steps. Number 1, requirement gathering, and I'll come back to requirement. What is a requirement? How do you gather it? Then requirement analysis. Then you have design part, or you can call it documentation part. Then you have coding. Then you have testing. Then you have implementation, and last one is maintenance of that application. Now, these are 7 universal steps. Regardless you're working in US, UK, Canada, any region, India, every software project is going to utilize these 7 steps always. How these 7 steps now are used within these approaches, that is a different story which I'll be covering today. So utilizing these 7 steps, there are 2 major approaches which are being used in project. Iterative method is more modern approach. Pretty much 60% of all the projects currently happening are happening in iterative method, and 85% of all development team are working on this method. 40% projects are still happening in the traditional method, and around 20-25% teams are still working on the traditional approach because they are not familiar with the iterative method. So that means the development teams, 85% development team now have a very good understanding of this iterative method, how to apply these 7 steps using this approach. Most of your government projects are going to be having mainly the traditional method because their teams are not trained in the new approaches. They are more, you can call it, bureaucratic structure. They follow that structure. They're very slow-paced environment. They're very slow-paced projects as well. So they are very comfortable using the traditional method. But again, let me be very clear here that both these approaches, regardless of these approaches, differences in these approaches, both these approaches are going to utilize these 7 steps: requirement gathering, analysis, design, coding, testing, implementation, and maintenance. Now let me walk you through these 7 steps one by one, a very general idea. What is a requirement? Can somebody tell me what is requirement? You guys can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
I can. Yeah, we can hear you, Imran.
Okay. So requirement is basically need. What is needed?
Need.
Okay. So requirement gathering means that you have to talk to the business and find out what do they need. For example, what is this project about? Is it a new product development, new software development, or is it that we have to do enhancements on the existing application, existing project, or is it a data migration project, or is it a third party implementation project? So you have to gather this requirement, you have to capture this information. And when you're gathering requirement, you will be gathering initially business requirements. So business requirement is nothing but your business need. And as BAs, as IT team, you have to break down these business requirement into further 2 levels of requirements. Number 1 is functional requirement. Number 2 is non-functional requirement. And I'm going to explain you through an example of building a house. For example, if you own a piece of land and you want to build your house, you will hire a team. So consider yourself as a client, and there's an IT team or there's a construction team who's going to come and help you build this house. So that team would be gathering requirement from you that, okay, what is the size of your land, what kind of building you want, how many rooms you want, how many kitchens, washroom, balconies, every single thing they have to capture from you, they have to gather from you. So requirement gathering here, once we gather business requirement, which is a very high level business need, they really don't know at that point how that business requirement will be broken down, how this business requirement is going to be executed. For example, let's take example of a social platform, Amazon, or sorry, Facebook. Now, let's suppose Facebook never exists, and the Facebook headquarters, they have hired this IT team and they want you to design this application. So let's suppose if you're asking them, tell me what are the features you want, what is your business requirement? So they say, we want a social platform where people can interact with each other. Now they are not telling you how they will be interacting, what is going to be the mode of interaction, through messaging or calling or interaction through chat, whatever it is. They are not going to highlight that. They're going to very high level business requirement. They will say, we want a social platform where people should be able to post their pictures. Now how these people, users, are going to post that picture, they are not going to define that in the initial phase. Business requirement means what is the need of business, while as a BAs you need to break down these business requirement into functional and non-functional requirement. And my major concern is working on the functional requirement, which is basically defining, if users are going to post picture, then what is the criteria to post picture, what is the step-by-step approach to post that picture. And this is a very common question which comes in interview. Tell me difference between functional and non-functional requirement. Now, if I ask you this question, Anil, what is your understanding? What is a functional requirement of an application, and what is a non-functional requirement of one application? One example.
In posting pictures, example what we have taken, the camera or the lens we are using or the aesthetics are non-functional.
Yes.
And The process of posting picture is the functional requirement.
Excellent. So functional requirement is anything which you are performing on the application itself. If user is interacting with that function, that is called a functional requirement. The task, the behavior an application is supposed to behave or supposed to perform, that is going to be called functional requirements. Let's take example of Facebook: posting picture, sending message, receiving message, commenting, liking, editing, tagging, sending video messages, all those things which you can do on the front end of the application, that is going to be called as functional requirement. Non-functional requirement is the backend task or supporting tasks which are supporting your application to perform the functional requirement in a better way. For example, in Facebook, when you're uploading a picture, okay, how much time it takes to upload your picture, how it is going to cater to the quality which you are, let's suppose if you are using a very high quality picture, it is going to take more time. If you are using a low quality picture, it might take less time. So quality, then the speed of the system, then the security of the system, security of the application, authentication criteria, all the backend tasks are the supporting tasks. For example, Google. Why you use Google? To do browsing, searching, watching videos, watching posts, different things, reading blogs, all those things which you can do on Google, on the front end of the Google, that is going to be called as the functional requirement. Now, how much time Google takes to revert back to your query, that timeline is basically the non-function, and that basically non-function requirement depend on the hardware, most of the time on the hardware. What is the RAM of the system, memory access, speed, all those things, security criteria, update criteria, maintenance. Your application get maintained. As a user, I won't be able to perform maintenance checks on Facebook. It automatically does maintenance on the backend, which as a user I don't even see. Sometime let's suppose you're using Chase mobile application or any bank mobile application, they usually send you a message which is in red color, red ink, states that on Sunday system will go under maintenance checks, and in that time you won't be able to perform certain functions. So that means that is a non-functional requirement. System need to have that non-functional requirement also built within it. When I was working, I had really no idea how non-functional requirements are catered, how non-functional requirements are gathered. I think in my third project, when I went into this new application design project, I was gathering all the functional requirement. And when I talked to my manager about the non-functional requirement part, he said that, oh, we have a document which have list of all the non-functional requirements which should be in an application. So when I opened that document, it was an Excel sheet, and there were around 120 non-functional requirement, out of which 15-16 were as highlighted as green, that these are must. 10 to 15 were highlighted as yellow, that it can be discussed with the development team if we should build these non-functional requirement or not. And then most of the non-functional requirement was highlighted as red, that no more needed in current applications or new projects or something like that. And the 12 non-functional requirements which were highlighted in green, they were basically maintenance, update of the system, security of the system, speed of the system, archiving, how long it can store the data and information, all those things. That basically, so then I found out that every organization is going to provide you with set of non-functional requirement that should be built in within the application. Now, while you work as a BA, my responsibility is not to understand how the non-functionality will work. I'll simply take those non-functional requirements and sit with my development team, and I'll ask them, okay, so this application maintenance criteria, can you let me know so I can document it? So he'll say, okay, let me talk to the production team. Now, who's the production team? Production teams basically are those teams who are going to manage your application once you are going to launch them. They manage all those servers, they manage all those environments, they manage your application once they are launched, once they are completely designed, once they are given to them. So they are the one who will be able to tell you what is your window of maintenance, because they are running multiple applications who are going through maintenance tasks. So they have to define when your application is going to be maintained. So they told us that every weekend or every Saturday around 6:30 to 7:30, this application will go through under maintenance process. Okay. What about update? when my application will get new update in terms of new data which is coming in, new clients which are coming in, how it is going to get updates. So basically they told me that 6:30 to 7:30 every day, 6:30 to 7 o'clock, 30 minutes every day, this application will go through update criteria and it will connect with your database, and whatever new information which have come into database, it will update all those informations. So these questions, when you say non-function requirement, that is not my problem to figure it out. Only thing I need to figure it out is what are the non-function requirements they want to include, and simply pass it on to development team, and they will be the one who will be giving me this information, so I can simply document them. My concern is writing down functional requirement, and functional requirements simply mean whatever business is asking you. Let's suppose business asks you, we want a function called post picture. That is our business requirement, that a user must be able to post picture, upload picture. I need to break it down. I need to find out step by step what are the step by step approach which user must take to upload this picture. So for example, if you talk about Facebook posting picture, the functional requirement of posting picture would be that to post a picture, user can post picture using camera, using photo album, or using the existing library, whatever library you have in your photo album. So there are three methods. If user is using camera, then they have to open their camera, or they have to click on post picture function within the Facebook where there's a camera icon. They have to click on that icon, and from there they can simply take the picture and upload it. And before uploading, if there are any options which are given, I have to also explain it. I have also have to write it down, break it down, that user can edit picture before posting, user can put filter on picture before posting, user can tag anyone before posting the picture. So there are different things which users can do, and that is an optional thing. So posting picture is a business requirement, and defining that criteria step by step, that is how I'm going to document that function requirement. Even though this process is you have multiple meetings back and forth with the business users, with product owners, to understand these steps. You're not coming up with these steps by your own. Everything have to come from the business user. This is what we want. You can simply give them some suggestions that, oh, I worked on a similar kind of a platform in my previous project, so I think if we can go through this way, that should be better. They can discuss it. If they're okay with it, they will let you know. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry for that. So business requirements, they're broken down into functional and non-functional requirement. Now first assignment, before I forget, first assignment is you need to select one application, any application you want to select. It could be your banking application, it could be any e-commerce platform, it could be any other application which you're using on your phone. I want you to select one application. What is happening? And write down 10 functional requirements and 5 non-functional requirement of that application. For example, you pick up Chase mobile application, Bank of America mobile application, Amazon platform, eBay, any Instagram, anything you are using. I want you to write it down in a Word document currently. Eventually you'll be putting it in Jira, but for the time being you can put it on Word document. What are 10 functions of that application? What are the 10 functional requirement? And you can use any sentence, any type of description for that. For example, users can post picture using Facebook. User can send and receive message using Facebook. Users can interact with each other using Facebook. There could be video call function on Facebook. Any way you can write it down. That there's no such thing which defines that this is how you need to write function requirement. Simply have to define what are the 10 function of that application and 5 non-functional requirement of that application. This is your first assignment. So once you complete it, please email me. The email I've already provided you. So use that one. Once we are going into further into the lecture, I'll be showing you Jira as well, so that you guys can put it on Jira as well. So first step is going to be requirement gathering, capturing the information from business users. And how do you gather requirement? There are multiple methods which you have basically to gather requirement. So requirement gathering techniques. This is another question which comes in your interviews. What are different types of requirement gathering technique? How do you interact with user and how do you gather those requirements? So the most common method is going to be email communication, meetings with stakeholder, interviews. They could be one-to-one interviews, face-to-face interviews, over the phone interviews, use case analysis. That is another method of gathering requirement. We'll be covering this later on. Number 4 is storyboards. You can simply, sitting in your team, you can walk into a whiteboard you have in your office. You can start writing down, this is how the application should look like, and from there onward you can get more and more suggestions, and then you can take this to business users and tell them that after our first meeting, this is what we have done, this analysis we have done, so if you can provide us with more input. So interaction basically, and most commonly, is going to be meetings. All day BAs are going to be involved in meetings. I used to have 6 to 7 meetings, 30-minute, 45-minute each. Every single day, these many meetings. Okay, because your role is to communicate, and eventually when things look solid, then you are going to document it. You're not going to document it from day one. Initially, you will be attending meetings, you'll be writing minutes of meeting, you'll be sharing those meetings with your stakeholders, with your own IT team, and then you'll be doing multiple discussions. You'll be coming up with your inputs, and then going back and forth, you'll be able to identify and finalize that this is what they need, this is how it is going to be executed, and you simply document it. And once you document it, you have to basically show it to the business users so they can approve it. So requirement gathering, then you have requirement analysis. That is basically analyzing the requirement in terms of, is it possible? My business can tell me that they want this, they want that, but is it possible to design? Do we have the support system? Do we have the resources who can design it? Do we have the tools which can support this requirement? Do we have the proper timeline to provide them with this information? Working in my last project, Barclays, they wanted us to design a simple application, financial intelligence global search tool, where a user can search any client from Barclay and they can pull up report. This application was basically designed to support the financial crime team. Financial crime team of every bank, they basically get requests, 314A request from FBI or any central investigation agency, any authority like that, regulatory authority. So what they basically request them is, on any customer who have done some suspicious transaction or whose behavior is suspicious, or any customer who is under trial, or any customer who's under some kind of politically exposed person list or terrorist list, these authorities can request data from bank that, okay, this customer is your customer and we want this information. So what they were doing, they used to go to database team, they used to tell them, okay, we need information about Anil, and then database team will say, okay, what information you need? So they say, we need his customer information, his account information, and all his recent transaction, all his information for last 3 months. Can you pull it out? Very time consuming and hectic process. So we designed them an application. It's simple search bar application where all these data sources, where the information of customer is there, transactions are there, account is there. We integrated all these data into this front end application, so that they can simply search it, they can print report and submit it on timely manner. So they told me they want around 14 to 15 functionalities to be supported. When we did analysis on that, we found out that due to limitations of the tool which we are using to design this software and timeline, we're not able to give you two major functions. So you have to analyze requirement. Is it possible to be designed? Is this requirement is complete? Can we test this requirement once it is designed? How useful it is going to be for the application or for the business users after doing all these analysis? Then you finalize the scope that, okay, this is our scope. This is what we are going to finally deliver. And then there's a meeting with the steering committee, with the project management office, the IT team is there, business users are there. Once your analysis is complete, then you finalize the scope of the project that, okay, this is what we are going to commit and this is what we are going to deliver to you. So this is the requirement analysis part. Within your requirement analysis, you do two type of analysis. One is front end analysis, how screens are going to look like, how much space this application is going to take, all those things. Each feature and function need to be defined, and then you do backend analysis, which is your data analysis. What is data analysis? Data analysis simply means if application is going to have certain functions, these functions will run only if we provide them with the information, with the data. For example, my business users wanted me to pull out social security number of every single client in the investment banking department. What I had to do, I had to go in the investment banking database. I had to open the customer table and I had to see how many customers are there in total. So there were 2.1 million customers in my investment banking department. And those 2.1 million customers, only 400,000 customers were having SSN, 1.7 million customers were having no SSN. So it is not possible for me to provide them this information. Even if I provide them, even if I pull this information into the application, most of the time the value is going to be blank, empty, which doesn't look good on your application on the front end side. So you go back to business users, you explain them this. Okay, we found out this data is not available, or this data is not coming through properly. What is the reason they are not having social security number? So you have to figure it out. So I figured it out because the investment banking department of Barclays is having customer from all different region, African region, ABSA, East Asia, America region, North America region. Only Americans have social security. Other countries do not have social security numbers. So I told them that all these customers who are missing social security, they do not have social security numbers. So they said, can you provide us with an alternative? So I said, okay, yes, tax ID number is available for pretty much every single client. So can I provide you with a tax ID number rather than social security number? So that's fine. So that is your data analysis, finding out, because business users can tell you anything. This is what we want, this is what we need, this information what we need, but they really don't understand the databases. They really don't know if the information which they are requesting in the application, if we have this information as optional or mandatory. Now let's suppose you go in a bank, you want to open account, investment account. They will give you a form to fill it up. Now all that form, whatever information you have to provide, not all the information is mandatory. Certain informations are optional. So if certain information, certain data points are optional, most customer will let it go. They will not provide it. But because my business users have seen that form and they feel that, okay, this information should be there and we want to see it in the application as well, they can tell me we want to see all this information. So as a BA, my role is to make sure that I analyze every single piece of information, going into database, finding out if that information is made available or not available. What is the reason of not having availability? Was it an optional field? Or is there any issue in the database that feeds are not coming properly, or database is not getting updated on timely manner? There could be multiple things that we have to do. And when you say data analysis, we have 3 lectures, two to three lectures on data analysis, how to view data, how to open tables, mappings, and all that. So we'll go through that later on. And all these steps which I'm covering right now, these 7 steps, I have a lecture on every single step. Right now I'm just giving you a very high level overview. Okay, so if you think I'm just skipping so many things, I'm not skipping, just trying to give you a very high level, but eventually every single step has its own lecture. Now, when you are done with analysis, when you define the scope of the project, when you know that this is what we are going to commit, and business committee, business users also agree to it, now you have to make sure that you start documenting the process and gather as much as information for those functional requirements, how the users are going to interact with the system, what steps they need to execute to achieve this function. So everything need to be documented, and that is called your design part, documentation part. These documents must be reviewed, they must be approved by different level of users, different level of participants, stakeholders, product owners, subject matter expert, your PMO office, your IT team leads, and then the actual business users who are going to use this application. So everyone is going to be participant in reviewing these documents and finalizing. Once the document is finalized, that means everyone is committing to it. Everyone is saying that we agree to it, let's design it. And that then goes into coding. IT team, based on your provided document, they will code the application, and once coding is done, they will perform testing, users will perform testing, BAs will perform testing, all the participant QA team will perform testing. So all the participants are going to be performing testing on it, tracing any defects, bugs, and then communicating those bugs to development team so they can fix it. And then eventually, once all the bugs have been fixed, application goes to the implementation process. And implementation process means launching the application on your company's department servers, and then giving access to the business users, which is usually single sign-on. One time you create their authentication. Once their authentication is approved, now it's simply they have to launch application by putting in the browser the application name only. Once they put the application name in the browser, automatically opens up without any login, without anything like that. It validates only once. That is called single sign-on. And your production team is the one who's going to support you during the implementation. They will be requesting you all the documents you have created so far, starting from business requirement document, functional documentation, testing documentation, code documentation, technical documentation. They will be requesting all those documents. Can you provide us, before launching this application, we want to see all those documents. Have these documents been approved? Have these documents been signed off? And then they will also be setting up criteria of updating the application, maintenance criteria, security criteria. If application goes down, there's a major bug, then what is the criteria to bring it back? uh, all those things they are discussed. Mostly development team is the one who discuss. My role as a business analyst is mainly in requirement gathering, requirement analysis, documentation, and support during the testing process. So that is an overall software development lifecycle. Everywhere in this whole universe, if the softwares are being designed, they need to go through these 7 steps. And I think not only softwares, anything. I was giving you example of a house. If I want to build a house, my team would come, the construction team would come, they will get the requirement from me, they will analyze those requirements. If whatever budget I'm offering them and timeline I'm offering them, within that, can they do that? Is it possible? Okay, do they have the material which I've requested? That kind of all those concepts what I'm asking them. And then eventually they will be the architecture will be able to design the architecture. That is here the document or design. That is basically your house architecture, which will be approved by the owner, that okay, yes, this is how I'm wanting this house. And then the architecture will be shared with the construction team, the masons and all that, and they will be building it. That is basically coding of the application. And eventually testing means simply making sure throughout every single step that your house is as per the business need, as per the client need. Your client will also come in, they will also check, and they can also tell you to make some certain small changes and all that. And eventually the house will be handed over. So anything, I think, which is being designed, which is being developed, which is being constructed, that kind of goes through all these 7 steps. Now when we talk about these 7 steps, these are universal, but how different organization are utilizing these 7 steps? So there are two approaches. These are two most commonly used approaches. which are used for software development or software enhancement. The traditional method is very simple method, is a very straightforward method. It says use these steps one by one. You cannot start two steps together. You cannot skip any step. You have to finish first step, then you move to second step, then you move to third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So the traditional method says, which is called waterfall approach. So under traditional method, the approach which is used, that is called waterfall. Okay, it's a sequential approach. Sequence is needed to be used here. Sequence by sequence, one by one, they say apply on the application. They say you cannot skip any step. You cannot start steps together or simultaneously. And the most important thing waterfall says that you cannot make changes in this project, in this application. So simply means waterfall approach as is asking to use these 7 steps of SDLC one by one, and waterfall approach is going to be used when business users are 100% certain what they want. They already know the requirement, they already know the user base, they already know what functionality they want, and they don't want to make any changes afterwards. So that is the reason that initial phase, once the requirements are gathered, these are the requirements on which we are going to do analysis. These are the requirements on which we are going to do design part, coding, testing, implementation. So phase by phase. So mostly every team kind of have their own timeline within that which they have to finish. Every phase have a timeline within which it has to be completed. So waterfall method, and the name itself is very obvious, waterfall. When water falls from top to bottom, it have to go all the way to bottom, from here till all the way to the bottom. That water cannot go up, it cannot go back. You cannot go back and make changes in any step. For example, you are in coding phase, your business users comes in, they want to conduct a meeting with you, and they tell you that, okay guys, due to some drastic changes, due to some regulatory changes or some changes in our organization, now we want to change certain functionalities in the application, so can you please add those functions? You cannot do that, because if you want to do it, that means you have to gather requirement again for the new function, you have to do analysis on those requirements again for those function, you have to document those requirements again, and then you have to go back and do coding. So that means you're wasting all your efforts and resources, all the time you've spent, so you have to go back. So make sure, they say, make sure if you want to follow traditional method or waterfall method, keep in mind that your application will not get any changes during the process. Everything need to be decided with the business users in the initial phase itself, that this is the application we want, these are the features we want, and there are going to be no changes. So that is why I say, when you see government sector, your New York Department of Transportation, New York Department of Education, all those government departments, they will be using waterfall method, traditional method, because they know we want a basic application, and that application should have these functions. The users who are going to use it go ahead and start designing it. So that means the whole application will be coded, and once the application is completely coded, only then it will be tested, and complete testing will be done, only then the application go into the implementation phase. So that is your waterfall environment, traditional method of designing a software. Till 2005, 6, 7, I think pretty much every single project was being done using the waterfall method, and then things changed. Why changed? Because if you are spending millions of dollars on an application, and maybe after half of the project is complete, and business users have some urgency or something came up and they want to make some changes, and if they're not able to make those changes, then what is the use? Wasting so many resources, wasting too much of effort. So that is where the iterative method come in. That basically is the modern approach. As I said, 60% of the projects currently in United States are happening in Agile or Iterative Method approach, and around 85% of the teams within US, they are familiar with this method. They're using this method. So now talking about iterative method, it is by the name of it, it's a bit obvious. Do you guys understand what is the meaning of iterative or iteration?
Yeah, we
Repetitive.
understand.
Repetitive activity.
Repetition of what? Repetition of all these steps again and again and again and again. So if we talk about waterfall method, it utilizes this SDLC steps only once. So it's a one life cycle application, use one SDLC life cycle. One time requirement gathering, one time requirement analysis, one time documentation, complete documentation, one time complete coding, one time complete testing. So once in the product life cycle, these steps will be used only once. Each step will be used only once. But when we talk about iterative method, that means repetition of all these steps on application again and again. How are you going to do it, and why are you going to do it? The reason of going into iterative method, implementing iterative method, simply is managing change. Initially the only reason was managing change, but now the reasons have changed. It has added advantage now. Customer interaction, users can see the application throughout its design phase. They can start using the application even it's not complete. They can self-test the application even if it is not complete. Transparency is there, interaction is there, more communication is there. And how do they do it? So I'm going to give you a very simple example. Let's suppose automobile, a vehicle, car. Instead of defining, first you get approval from business users what you want in engine, in suspension, in transmission, in body, lighting, electric. If you're working in a waterfall environment, you gather all these requirements, you do analysis on these requirements, you document all these requirements, and then you give it to the engineers, and they will design the whole car, they will build everything all together, and then they will test it, and then eventually they will show it to the business users or the client. But if you're working in a waterfall method, if you're working in an iterative method, it says break down your car, break down your project into multiple small projects, multiple smaller components. And for each component, each part, treat it as a separate project and apply all those SDLC steps on that. So that means you have engine, you have transmission, you have body, and you have electric work, and then you have suspension. Under engine, whatever components are there, they will define those components. Under transmission, whatever components, whatever features need to be designed, they will define those. Under body, doors and all those things, sunroof and electric work, all those things will be broken down. And then only on engine, they are going to analyze the requirement. They are going to document every single function separately, and then they are going to code it, and then they are going to test it, and then they're going to go to the business users and show them that this is the engine we built. And if they are comfortable with this, if they are sticking with this, if they don't want to make any changes into this, they will say, okay, we are fine, then we move on to transmission part. We do same thing, we analyze the transmission component. For each component, we write down separate document, and then we code the transmission part. We test it, we walk to our business, we again give them a demo. If they're happy with it, we move to the next part. We apply these steps again and again and again, and that is the reason we call it iterative approach, iterative method, where we are repeating these software development life cycles again and again. And the best thing is that business users are looking at it when even the application or the project or your car is not completely done. What is happening in this way, they are also taking kind of a self-learning, self-training throughout the application design, they are viewing it, they are watching it, they are using it, and then they are letting you know. And if there's any change they need, they will simply let you know, oh, we want to make change in body parts. Now, this change is not going to hurt me. Why it is not going to hurt me? Because I'm not going to work on engine again. I'm not going to work on transmission again. I'm only going to work on body part because I was only working on it and I have shown it to them. So even if I have to make change, I have to only make change to this, not to the whole application. In case of waterfall, if during testing they want to have something changed, that means you have to go back and document everything, code everything, retest everything. That means using all those steps, going back and doing everything all together. Here you only have to check or change the part which they don't like. So that is called repetition. So in iterative methods, the software development lifecycle, 7 steps: requirement gathering, requirement analysis, design, coding, testing, implementation, and maintenance. All these steps are going to be used repetitively. And the reason of doing that is to make sure that you are giving flexibility to your business user, to your customer, to check it, feel it, and then if they want to make changes, they can make changes. And why business? Let's take example of financial sector. I'm designing a wealth management platform, or I'm designing an anti-money laundering application. If I'm following iterative method, what is the reason of having change? Is it that users initially were not sure? No. Every project, when it is started, business users are sure what they want. They are certain what they want. That is why they're putting this much effort. That is why they're hiring all these resources. That is why they're allocating this much budget. So they are 100% sure what they want. But what is one thing or two things which can take them toward making this adjustment, making these changes? Number one is regulations. When you work in any financial or healthcare sector, these sectors are regulated by regulatory authorities. And these regulatory authorities are going to come up with new rules and new regulation after every month or 2 months, and they will be sending you notifications. Now, because the industry is automated using software, so everything is happening on software. My monitoring is happening on software. My reporting is happening on software. So that means I have to adjust my softwares according to those rules and regulations. So one major reason of making change is that if I'm doing a project down the line in 3, 4, 5 months, there is something regulation which has changed, and that application gets impacted because that application is specifically designed to meet those regulatory guidelines. So if that application is going to be impacted, I should have flexibility to make adjustments. So agile methodology or iterative approach is mainly used for those designs and those platforms where changes can come in where you don't have any control. Another reason could be competition. iPhone and Samsung is designing one phone, iPhone is designing one phone. Both these companies pretty much launch their phone on same time, same month. So that means if they are launching their phones in September, they already announced that in September we are launching our phone. So from January, they start working on the requirement part, and then they start designing and all that. Let's suppose uh, Samsung have issued a statement that they are coming up with some new features, and then iPhone see, oh, we don't have these features. And if we don't bring these features for our customer base, we might lose market value. So let's make changes. Let's bring something else also. So if they are not working in iterative method, they are working in a traditional platform using waterfall approach to build their phone, they will not be able to adjust it. Even if they want to adjust it, they have to spend so much money. They have to redo everything. So they would be using agile just to make sure that if the competition is coming with something better, we will be able to make adjustment during the development phase itself. So competition could be another reason. Regulation, change in regulatory rules and regulation, that is another reason. Certain applications, certain platforms are getting obsolete. New and better technologies are coming. I'm using an application with a SQL Server database. I'm going to design an application using Oracle platform. but then I found out there's a best platform. It's a cloud-based environment. It is cheaper. I could have done that. So that could be another reason of making sure that you are following iterative method, the agile method. I'll walk you through what is agile. So iterative approach you're using so that you have flexibility to make changes, you have flexibility to adjust these changes. So transparency is there, communication have to be there. You need to make sure everyone is interacting with everyone. In waterfall or traditional environment, you do not work in cross-functional team. For example, when development is going on, your your coding team is doing coding. I am no one to talk to them. I have no role whatsoever because I've given them my documentation and they just simply have to follow those documents. Once they are completely done designing this application, only then I jump in. But when you're working in iterative approaches, modern approaches, because you are designing and developing and coding and testing these components at the same time, within one cycle, small cycle, you're designing something, you're coding something, you're testing something. So all these teams are working together, they are interacting together. So agile is the methodology which is commonly used. Agile Scrum methodology is being used under iterative approach. So the iterative method or iterative approach of designing software, that is called agile. What is the meaning of agile? Guys, fast.
You can always come back and make the changes.
Yeah, but agile mean fast. Now, agile approach is further divided into three sub approaches: agile Scrum, agile Kanban, agile XP. Pretty much they are 80% similar in every aspect. Very minor differences, minute differences, which I'll be covering. The most commonly used approach in pretty much 90% of agile project, you will be seeing agile Scrum. And what is the meaning of Scrum? Scrum is basically a terminology which is used in baseball or even rugby, not baseball, rugby or football as well, which is American football. That is basically when the team get together and they simply do discussion: who's going to get the ball, who's going to throw, who's going to run, who's going to deviate. This small planning they do, and they get together. Even in cricket, even in any game, any sports, before going into ground, they come in a huddle and then they do some small 2 minute, 1 minute discussion, strategies or whatever they need to define. That is basically concept of Scrum. And there's a meeting in Agile that is called daily Scrum meeting. If you are going to work in Agile environment, you have to have communication, because you are designing, coding, testing these components all together, showing them back to business users, a lot of interaction with business users. So you, first of all, within your IT team, you have to have proper communication. So every day when you walk into your office, 9 o'clock sharp, they will give you a dial-up number, or sometime within a conference room, all the team member will get together and they will discuss what I did yesterday. I will explain that what I did yesterday and what I'm going to do today. And if there is any hurdle, I'll just highlight them. No solution will be provided. I can discuss later on with my team member or lead. But within this meeting, daily Scrum meeting, mostly it is called stand-up meeting. Mostly it's 10 to 15 minutes. And your Scrum team size, when you work in Agile environment, they say that your Scrum team size need to be 7 to 9 members. I mean, this is not a rule. You will see teams having 5 team members, you will see teams having 17 team members, agile team. But the best approach, they say, is an every or any agile Scrum team, it is better to have 7 to 9 members, and these 7 to 9 members include BAs, Scrum Master, who is basically the in charge of managing these meetings or communicating everything with the IT team back to the business users, all those things. Your coding team, your testing team, your BA team, all these are your part of your IT Scrum team. So around 9 people are going to be participating in, approximately 9 people will be participating within this meeting on daily basis, where only point of discussion would be what I did yesterday. I'll pick up phone, I'll say, hey, my name is Imran. So guys, I was working on ticket number 103. Pretty much done on it. Today I'm going to do testing on it or something, whatever I'm going to do. All right, next person. So everyone will basically discuss what they're going. So that is the reason this approach is called Agile Scrum approach, where you have daily stand-up Scrum meeting. Okay, now overall understanding is of Agile, which I'm going to give you, so that then I can walk how actually it is implemented as a BA, what you do, what software you use, but overall understanding, get it, that a product or a software is broken down into multiple components. Each component is treated as a small project. Every component is going to get requirement gathering part, analysis part. It is going to get their own documentation. It is going to have testing. It is going to be shown to the business users, and then you move to the next part, you do same thing. Then you move to the next part, you do same thing. And if there are any changes needed, business users can let you know, we want to make this change. After you give them a demo, then they will let you know if we need a change. You can adjust those changes as well. So this is the overall process. Now, how as a BA you are going to work? Simply as any approach, as I said, software development lifecycle steps are important. So here in Agile Scrum also, first thing you do is you gather requirement from product owners, from subject matter experts, from business users, from IT stakeholders. They will involve you in meetings. You are just participant in those meetings. Have a copy and pen. Make sure you're writing down everything. Even if you don't understand what they're talking about, you have to write it down, because if not first day, second, third, fourth, fifth day, it will start making sense to you. Then you can revisit your notes and see that, okay, this is what they were talking about. So taking notes is very important. So first, you will be involved in multiple meetings, and the meeting agenda is going to be gathering requirement. Now, when you gather requirement in Agile environment, these requirements called user stories. Functions which you are going to gather, these are called user stories. So as a BA, I am going to gather
Imran, I believe, can you make an announcement to make others mute except you? I see somebody not muted.
Okay.
It's bothering me.
Sure. Why there's no option of, okay, mute all, here is there. Okay. Gathering requirement. That is how I said any method, any approach you're working, you will start with gathering requirement, capturing information. From who do you gather requirement? Yesterday I explained product owner and subject matter experts are going to be there, and then business users are going to be there who will be helping you in gathering requirement. Once the requirement is gathered, that requirement is going to be called user story. So for example, Facebook posting picture is user story. Sending message is a user story. Receiving message is a user story. Okay, so user story, there's a way of documenting user story. User story is nothing but one line. Right now you don't know how this function will be developed, designed, executed, what are going to be the steps. Only thing you know right now is what is the need of business, what they want from us, what they want within this application. So you will change their whatever they are telling you into a user story, and user story will have three things. In one line you have to write down three things: role, function, benefit. So let's take example of Facebook. Facebook only have one type of role, basic user. As account holder of Facebook, function is I want to post pictures, and benefit is anything they are perceiving. So here benefit could be, so my friends can view it, okay, Another story can be as account holder of JP Morgan Chase Bank. I want to deposit checks in my account, so I have whatever benefit you are seeking.
Sorry, Imran. This is Anil again. I see somebody unmuted. I think Ali Raza. I'm not able to hear what you're saying.
Okay, hold on. Or Ali, mute you so I can mute you. Hi, good now?
Looks to be.
Okay. So they will simply tell you this is what function we want. You have to change it into one-liner, and that is called user story. User stories have three things: role, function, and benefit. So as I said, as the account holder of JP Morgan Chase, I want to be able to deposit check using my mobile application. So I have enough fund, I have sufficient fund, or I can manage my funds. So that is a user story. Mostly your product owner's responsibility. Most cases it is his responsibility to write down these user stories in a tool, because when you're capturing this requirement, there should be a way of documenting them. Now here in Agile, when you're using iterative method, you're using Agile, you're not documenting them in Word. You might put them initially in Excel sheet one by one, but eventually you have to put these user story in the Agile management software, where all the team members have access and they can view what is going on. So the software which you are going to use, that is going to be called either Jira, most cases Jira, some cases Rally, and Team Foundation Server. All these softwares work similar way. All these functions have similar criteria of working, similar kind of function. They're just from different vendors. Okay, so let's suppose if you're using Jira or Rally, the Jira will have, or a Rally will have, a section called product backlog. Your manager would have created a project for you in Jira, and they would have given you access to Jira, and within this project they must create product backlog. Initially it will be blank. It will be like this, blank. User story ID. Every user story will have its ID. Let's suppose 01, 02, 03, 04. User story name, simply pick it up, this whole three liners, put it here. As a user, I want to be able to post picture. So user story ID, user story name, and last thing in product backlog is going to be priority. Your product owner is going to define if it's a high priority or a medium priority or a low priority story. That is a product backlog. So if I show you Jira product backlog here, and I go on images, see, so this is a backlog. It has 50 issues or 50 user stories. This is how it is putting. These are the priorities as well. Everyone will have ticket. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to work on Jira, and then you will understand it. First of all, let me simply cover it, cover the whole concept, and then at the end of the lecture, I'll show you how to put it on Jira. And every one of you need to get Jira. There is a 7-day trial version, free of cost. You can use it for 7 days. You can add me in your Jira as well, so I can view your progress. Okay, so first step is going to be gathering requirement by conducting various meetings with your business users, with product owner, and then once you capture this information, you simply change it into user story, which is a one-liner ticket, one-liner user story, and that have three things: role, function, and benefits. And then this will go into the product backlog of your project, and it will have user story ID, name, and priority. One by one you're capturing this, one by one you're adding it in. Your product owner is sitting with you in some meetings and he's helping you refine it. Refine mean if some user stories are not making any sense, you'll take it out. If some user stories need to be added, refined, priorities need to be changed. So he'll be doing this kind of sessions with you, with your team, to make sure that he is refining him accurately. So once, let's suppose you gather the product backlog, let's suppose you have 100 tickets, you have 100 user stories which you have captured in. No, priority is not based on story points initially, because story points are assigned once you're actually going to go for your development, which is your sprint planning and sprint estimation. At that point of time, user stories are given the points or number of hours, and then it is defined. But definitely it have indirect link. Any user story which is having more user story points or which need more number of hours to be developed, that is going to be called as high priority. But again, this is not the only criteria. In any application there could be some functions which are very small and some functions which are very big, but that doesn't mean a big function is a high priority and a small function is not a high priority. Maybe a small function can be a high priority as well. Priority is defined based on the business users need. What is that they want to see first? Business users are going to tell you that, okay, can you provide us with these functions first? Out of these 100 tickets, we want to be checking these third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Can you give us this first? So priority can be defined and decided by the business users with the help of product owner. And then second criteria could also be what you said, user story points. But because user story points are not going to be assigned in the initial phase, they are going to be assigned after this one. So that basically is not direct link. Uh, so product backlog is going to be nothing but your to-do list. This is called to-do list or user wish list, but generally we call them product backlog. Whatever we need to have in this product, that is going to be kept in product backlog in form of user stories, single line user stories. What is happening after this? One of the BA would be requested, would be asked to create tickets on each of the story. When you are basically putting these stories, on each story there have to be a ticket is nothing but a task or an item in Jira, where you have the function called create issue or create ticket. Once you click on it, a page will open up. What is that you want to do? What is the name of the ticket? Who is going to be assigned? What is the timeline and all those things? Initially you don't have any information. You simply have to create ticket on every story. So let's suppose if there are 100 stories, 100 Jira tickets will be created, because eventually these tickets need to be worked on. Eventually these tickets will be assigned by business analysts and developers to themselves. So this is the criteria. So ticket creation would be done for every single story, and eventually by the time these tickets will get filled up with the document, with the mock-up screen design, with a use case, with different people commenting on it, you are putting more and more information for that. For example, this ticket name is post picture. Right now I only have one line: as a user I want to be able to post picture. I have nothing else. But eventually as a BA, my role is to analyze and then start doing documentation, gather information, how to post picture, what steps my business want. And once I have this whole criteria defined of posting picture, I need to change this ticket into a document. So that is called user story specification document. That is my deliverable as a BA in Agile project, that every single user story is going to have its own dedicated document. Every user story, one liner user story, will be changed into a user story specification document. User story specification document will cover in our next lecture. So user story specification document, once it is designed, it will be attached with this ticket. And if I have a mock-up or screen design how this function would look like, I'll also attach with this ticket. So this ticket will continuously keep on improving. with more and more document. When I will give you assignments, you will be putting all the assignments with these tickets. First you will create tickets, and with every ticket you will be putting your assignments and improving your user stories. And eventually once your user stories are having the documents ready, now we feel, let's suppose your product backlog has been designed, 10-15 tickets have been converted into user story specification documents. Now we can move toward the actual development. We can go ahead and design those tickets which are ready with the mock-up screen design, ready with the documentation, everything has been clarified. So once that is done, then we move to the next step. So first step is product backlog. Second step is working on every single ticket you have worked. Every single ticket you can self-assign ticket to yourself in Jira. Nobody is going to assign ticket. You can have meeting with your team members and say, okay, I'm going to work on post picture, I'm going to work on send message, and you can self-assign these tickets to yourself. That means now you have to provide document on it. So any person from the stakeholder, from the business users who is going to give you answer on posting picture, you have to set up meeting with them, and then you have to show them that this is what we are going to do. So can you walk me through what functionality you want? So then simply you need to document that function and then attach it with that ticket. Now the second part is, after designing product backlog and after BA role, which is to basically work on the design or documentation or writing down user story specification document, now you see that okay, around 10-15 tickets have been worked on. Now we can actually move toward our production development. So after your product backlog is designed, you have to go for creation of sprint backlog. Same way as you have a product backlog, your manager will create a sprint backlog, which will be same as is. You can simply drag and drop tickets which you want to move into production, into development, into the sprint. So what is a sprint backlog? What is sprint itself? In general, sprint is nothing but a short race which you start and complete. Same way here, sprint backlog mean a small development effort which you will start and finish right away. Generally in Agile, they say that your sprint timeline should be between 2 to 4 weeks. Either 2 weeks, either 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. You have to define one timeline. So 2 to 4 week timeline is the sprint timeline. That means within 2 weeks, whatever tickets you are going to select, they must be developed, they must be coded, they must be tested within these 2 weeks timeline. Or if you're picking 3-week timeline, everything need to be done in 3-week timeline. If it is 4-week, everything need to be done in 4-week timeline. And then you have to show this to your business users that okay, we have designed our first sprint. So that would be called, let's suppose after product backlog, you are going to move into sprint backlog. But before you move and create first sprint backlog, you have to have a meeting conducted, that is called sprint planning and estimation meeting. Who are the participants? Your product owner is there, your scrum master is there. Who's a scrum master? Scrum master is somebody who's going to arrange all these meetings, all these scrum calls. That person could be a BA who's performing dual role of a BA as well as a scrum master. That person could be simply just scrum master who have nothing to do with IT coding or writing down documents. He's simply there to manage these meetings. There's a role called scrum master. And then your IT team, which is basically developer, coder, tester, and BAs. So all of you are sitting all together in a meeting, and then your product owner simply opens up this product backlog. He clicks on first ticket, and once he click on first ticket, this whole page will open up. He will click on this attached document and he will review this attached document line by line. And if he feels that this is the right criteria for posting picture, he will say, okay guys, I am moving this ticket from the product backlog into our first sprint, which is your sprint backlog. So drag and drop He will drop this ticket here. But before dropping this ticket here, he need to get timeline that how much time coding and testing team need to code it and test it. So that is why this meeting is called sprint planning plus estimation meeting. So these tickets need to be estimated because you are picking up a sprint which is 2 week long. So you can only take in those functions which can be designed in 2 weeks. You cannot take more, you cannot take less. You have to make sure you take exact effort. So how do they do that? So what they do is, for this ticket, let's suppose we have picked up this ticket called post picture. He will write down post picture on a sticky note. 4 developers are there or 2 testers are there. Every sticky note will have post picture, and he will give it to the development team and say, put down your story points. How many story points you think how much of effort you think you need to design and code or test this. Everyone have to give their own numbering, and that numbering is given using Fibonacci number, which is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13 and 21. These are the numbers which are going to be assigned. 1 point story mean one user story point mean a smallest of effort. 2, 3 still small effort. When you go into 8 or 13, that means this is a major function. It need more coding effort, it need more testing effort. Everyone will be given their own number. So let's suppose one developer put 3 user story points. Hold on, sorry. So for example, all those developers who are sitting there, they are giving their own numbering. One of them have given it as 3, one have given 5, one has given 3, one has given 2 points, one has given 3 points. He will take out the most common number and he'll say, okay, I am assigning 3 user story points to this ticket. So when I'm walking in this sprint, this is how the sprint backlog is going to be. User story ID, user story name, and story points. So let's suppose my first ticket which I have taken for post picture, it have 8 points, common number was given, so I've taken 8 points. The second ticket I'm taking is login function of Facebook. It is a small function. They've all decided on 3 points. Third story is I'm taking is, let's suppose, forgot password option or registration option. It is a 5-point story. So total 8, 3, 5, 5, 8, 11, 16 points we have to cover within this 2 week. That means now the soon tomorrow after this meeting, next day your sprint will start. Soon the sprint start, these developers will pick up these tickets and they will start coding it, and then testers will take these tickets, they will start testing it. As a BA, I'll be getting notification on my tickets because I'm the one who's putting user stories. So I'll be getting notification that this guy has developed it, this guy has tested it. So I can also go and click on the link. They will post a link on my ticket back. Once they, let's suppose, design post picture function, a link will be posted by them. So once I click on this link, I can see post picture function, and if I feel that is how my business users want it, I can simply go in this ticket and put a comment. It's been tested, everything looks fine. Tester will put their comment, developer will put their comment, and one by one they will finish these stories within 2 week timeline. And on daily basis they are doing daily scrum meeting where they are discussing what is everyone doing, if there's any issue, and people here have to help each other. Let's suppose if one developer is stuck on this ticket, others have finished it, and he's not telling them I'm stuck. It is going to affect the whole team, BA, QA, IT developers, Scrum Master. It is going to affect the whole team. Because of this person, we will not be able to show this to the business users, because we have told business users that within 2 weeks we'll finish these tickets and we'll come to you and we'll give you a demo. But if we are not helping him or he's not highlighting what is his issue, then there could be major issue. So that is the reason they say there need to be a lot of transparency. Every day you need to discuss who's working on what ticket, what is going on. If there's any issue, if there's any problem, you guys can help each other, assign each other's ticket and support each other. So give me 1 second, guys. I have to take this call. Hi, Mike. Sure, I'll give you a call back. Thank you. Bye. Sorry, guys. Where was I? Okay. Now, story points, that is a very common question. How do you assign user story point? How do you know that we have to give 3 points to the story or 5 points to the story? So that is not 100% certain. In first sprint, development teams usually have done similar kind of work before as well. So based on that effort, they can decide how many story points the story needs. And then they can always compare next time. So let's suppose they will take smallest of the story point first, number 1, and they will try to locate any user story which can be same. So they can assign same user story point. Okay. And your first sprint, you have to keep some margin for yourself, because you're not sure if you should be able to finish all this in 2 weeks, test this in 2 weeks, code this in 2 weeks. So you have to have some buffer for yourself, and your first sprint is going to set a benchmark for all your coming sprint, that okay, we were able to finish 16 point very easily, we should stick with 16, or we should take more stories, 18 points. And all your sprints are not going to have same stories, same numbers of story. For example, this total is 16 point with 3 story. Next sprint, I'm picking a ticket which is itself 16 points. So that means I'm only going to work on one ticket. That one story will be developed, that one story will be coded, that one story will be tested. So regardless, you have to simply make sure every sprint your story points are going to be pretty much same, not the number of activities you are going to do, because every activity is different in terms of development effort. Login feature is smaller, registration feature will take more effort, send receive message will take more effort, post picture will take maybe less effort. So story points pretty much are going to be same going forward in every sprint. Number of stories which you are taking, they might differ. And there's a concept called epic. Any function, major function, which you think cannot be done in 2 weeks, that is going to be called epic. Let's take example of post picture. Post picture have 3 criteria: album, camera, and Facebook existing albums or anything. No, this is library. So there are 3 ways of posting picture. So if you want to design this post picture function, and it is only one function. If you want to design this post picture function, there are 3 different ways, and for each way there's a separate steps. This have separate steps, this have separate steps. So if you are trying to design this story in 2-week timeline, you might not be able to design it. Any story which exceeds more than 21 point, that is going to be called epic user story. Initially, when you work in projects, first they always define epics, and then they break down these epics into user stories. So first you will see major. So for example, when I was giving you example of automobile, suspension is epic, engine is epic, but within engine there are multiple components. So an epic story is a story which cannot be completed within one sprint, so you have to further break it down. And one thing you need to understand, if you're following a 2-week sprint, it is not possible that next sprint you will follow for 3 weeks, because you think we are going to work on an epic and it should not be completed in 2 weeks. We might take 3 weeks, so let's finish it in 3 weeks. You cannot do that. Your sprint timeline need to be unique. You need to be same. If you're following first sprint for 2 weeks, every coming sprint cycle is going to be 2 weeks. So any story which cannot be covered in 2 weeks, that is going to be called epic. Epic need to be further broken down. So here post picture can be broken down in this: post picture using album and post picture using camera. We can bring it in our second sprint, and that third part can move into next sprint with some other stories. So this is how we break down. Now, what are you doing as a BA when this sprint is going on? So you are simply doing one thing. Every day you're attending these meetings, communicating, whatever it is. You already provided the user story specification document. 80% of your job is done for this sprint, because you have written the user story specification document. You've gotten approval from product owner, and it has been added into current sprint. It is now development team which have to develop it, code it, and testing team who have to test it. But I have to test it as well. My testing is simple. My testing is simply viewing that function, if that has been coded accordingly to the design which we have given or the business users have asked. If that is fine, I'll put my comment on it, on the ticket. That looks fine, and then you guys can close the ticket. So during sprint, BA role is simply testing and then communicating through Scrum meeting if there is anything. And during that sprint timeline, you will be working on next stories, because there are 100 tickets and only documentation have been done for 10 so far. So I'm going to go and see what other tickets I have to work on, what other stories I have to work on. I have to write down user story specification document. So BAs will be continuously working on documents, and then eventually once your sprint is over, once your 2-week timeline is over, there's a meeting which is conducted with business users, that is called sprint demo meeting or sprint review meeting. One of the BA or developer will simply put in the application on computer, and they will have, during meeting, they will show the screens to the customers that this is what we have designed, these 3-4 features we have designed. If customers are okay with it, they will say okay, fine, thank you so much. If they want to have some changes, they will highlight those changes. Now, doesn't mean that you should be applying those changes into coming sprint. If those changes which they have requested are not critical, you can always do them later on. But if those changes are critical, then you need to do these changes in the coming sprint. Make sure you facilitate your user by doing those changes. And once your sprint demo meeting is over, everything goes well, you will have a meeting within your own team, your IT team. That meeting is called sprint retrospective meeting. Idea of this meeting is to look back at your performance as a team, what you guys did, how did you do it, what are the positives, what are the negative, any changes you guys need to make, any adjustment you guys need to make. So just looking back at your performance, judging yourself, that is basically, now no business is involved here, it is only your own IT team. And there are 3 major roles in Agile Scrum project: product owner, Scrum master, and IT or development team. And we all work together in cross-functional manner. We are interacting on daily basis. We are having more and more transparency. We are having more and more communication, and there are the different meetings which are the reason of having more communication. Agile Scrum environment. If somebody, when you go for interview, they will ask you what are different ceremonies in Agile Scrum, or what are different types of meetings in Agile Scrum. So first of all, daily Scrum meeting. Yes, Sonam, daily Scrum meeting. Number two,
Imran,
yes.
to interrupt you, you want me to ask the question later? That's fine.
No, right now.
Okay. So the sprint demo, right? So when you said that, we show them the application, this is what we have made, and, we give them a demo, right? What if there are like conditional user stories? What if like there is something that, hey, if we do this, this is what is going to happen? How are we going to show that in the demo?
Didn't catch
Like
your
if we
question.
have created some UIs, logins, I understand that we can show that. But what if they're functional, or, those kind of user stories that if we do this, this will happen? How are we going to show that? Just give them a walkthrough that this is what we have implemented, or like how are we going to show them visually?
Okay, so always your development team is going to create a link. Whatever they are designing, a link will be created on the dev environment, and that link will be sent to the business users, so they can click on that link and they can observe whatever has been designed. Again, I'm not able to completely understand your question in terms of, if there is a function you've designed, they can definitely see it. Only thing they will not be able to see is the non-functional requirement, the speed. Let's suppose if they want to log in, they can see login function, but they will not be able to see how much time, or what is the speed or authentication criteria, what is going on the back end. Those things they'll not be able to view, but every single function which you're designing, you should be able to show them. If you can
Okay.
rephrase your question, maybe I can understand it better. But
I just wanted you to tell me that if there are certain, user stories which could not be shown in demo, but now you're saying that there might be, the developers might be giving link to whatever they create, except the non-functional. So I think, I
So
got my
link,
answer.
yes. So answer is link. That link is created. That link is kept on the dev environment initially. I'll also walk you through what is a dev environment, what is production environment, what is UAT environment, QA environment, and how your application code is moved, transferred. Again, that is something which you will understand eventually at the end of this BA, which I'll be guiding you. Don't worry. But there's
Sure.
always a link. That link is
Mhm.
having all the things which have been developed, and this link is shared with the business users. Once they click on it, they can actually see whatever has been designed. Okay.
Okay. And one more question, Imran. So, when you started before the sprint backlog, the product backlog, right? And you said there are create issues and tasks. Should I consider them task or user stories, and how, like, because when I went to Jira and I wanted to do something, they first said that create sprint and then attach the user stories and tasks to it. So is my understanding correct that, the when you showed the product backlog, um, the user story and task tickets are different?
Yes.
And I got a little confused at the sprint backlog, where we have to create a sprint and then attach the user story. So are we attaching those user stories that we created in the first create tickets issues, or what?
Yes. Yes. So, but basically, when you are creating a ticket, ticket will have a drop down which will say type of ticket. So a drop down will say either it's a defect, either it's a user story, or either it is a issue or a bug. And there could be one more thing, I think, that is called user story, defect, issue, bug, and then suggestion, I think. Now if you're writing user stories, you will select user story, so it will automatically become user story ticket. And if you are, let's suppose after testing you found a defect, you will create a separate ticket where you will say defect, and then whatever functionality on which defect was created, you will also link that ticket to it. Now your question was, how do you move user stories into sprint? Your product backlog, it's a drag and drop tool. Your product backlog, whatever tickets you have in your product backlog, once your product owner finalize those tickets, let's suppose 2 or 3 tickets that need to be worked on in the coming sprint, He will simply drag them and he will drop them into sprint backlog. Same tickets are going to be there. Whatever you have in the sprint backlog, same tickets you will see in the sprint backlog. And eventually one by one, once you're finishing these sprints, you'll be moving all the tickets from product backlog into sprint backlog. Eventually your product backlog will be empty and your production, your deployment will be done. But I'm gonna walk you through Jira. Next lecture is completely on Jira. Whatever I've taught you today, I'm going to show you how to first create project on Jira, access on Jira, then how to create project on Jira, then how to create Scrum board on Jira, how to create tickets, how to move those tickets, assign those tickets, everything I'm going to. But before tomorrow's class, oh sorry, Monday's class, everyone please get Jira. Actually don't get it today because it is only available for 7 days. So get it on Sunday. Get Jira, go on Google, get Atlassian Jira 7-day trial version. By simply putting your email ID, you will be registered and then you will have access to it. And then on Monday, once I give you lecture, I'm going to show you the whole project and the stories and everything, how to create, and the assignment which I've given you. You will also be uploading that assignment. For all those 10 functions, you will be creating 10 user stories, 10 tickets. And then furthermore, when we move into our next part of the lectures, you'll be creating user story specification documents. You'll be creating use case documents on each ticket. You'll be creating test cases on each ticket. So the whole process will be done using Jira. So whatever questions on you have on Jira, they will be answered on Monday. Because if I start talking about Jira right now, things will get complicated. And this is the only complicated lecture. The
Sure,
Agile
thank you.
lecture is the only complicated, but all your complications will be resolved on Monday when I'm showing you the actual practical work using Jira, how you manage Agile. Okay?
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So now going back again, Agile Scrum is an iterative method of software development where the software is designed in series of iterations. These iterations are generally known as sprint. A sprint can be between 2 to 4 week timeline. And as a business analyst, your basically work is to gather requirement in form of user stories and put those user stories into product backlog. User stories are initially going to be only one-liners, which are going to define 3 things: role, function, and benefit. These one-liner user stories then need to be worked on properly so that you can change these tickets, these user stories, into proper user story specification documents. And these user story specification documents will be attached with each ticket, with each user story. And once you have enough user stories documented, then your development team might think that, okay, let's move toward the actual development. And then your product owner, your scrum master, and IT team, you guys will sit together and you will conduct a sprint planning and estimation meeting, where your product owner will open up the product backlog and he will see which tickets have been worked on, which tickets have attachments available on them, documents available on them. He will review the process, he will review the criteria of every ticket you have written, and if everything is good, he will ask the development team to estimate user stories. User stories are estimating using user story points, which is a Fibonacci number. User story points are 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 14, and 21. 13 and 21. 21, more than 21 mean that it is a big effort that cannot be completed in 2-week timeline. So that is called epic story. Generally, most of the time, you will see 8 or max 13 user story points in one sprint for one ticket. Generally, they have 8, 5, 3, 2, 1. This is how they break it down. Further, they break it down. Within your sprint, which is 2-week timeline, it is developers who are going to code based on your documentation provide. It is testers who are going to test based on the coding, and it is you who is going to also view that ticket using that link if that has been coded properly, putting commentary on it, and then closing the ticket. One by one, these tickets will be closed, and this whole process will be done using multiple meetings, daily scrum meetings, stand-up meetings, where you'll be discussing who's doing what did you do yesterday, what are you going to do today, and if there's any impediments or issues which you can discuss after the meeting. That is going to be only 10-15 minute meeting. Once your sprint time is over, you have developed and designed your stories, then you can move toward the sprint review meeting or sprint demo meeting, where users will be given demo of whatever you have coded. And then if they are fine with it, they will tell you move on to the next one. You will do same thing. You will go back, you will do sprint planning estimation again. But sorry, before that, you will have a sprint retrospective meeting within your own team to understand what changes you can bring, how to improve yourself, the positives and negatives, discussion points. This is only between your IT team. And then you go back and do again sprint planning estimation meeting, redo everything what I've just explained, show it to the business users, and then again go back and do sprint planning estimation. So sprint by sprint. This is called iteration. Sprint by sprint, you are going to design the application. The best part is that users will be looking at every single component. Users will be getting self-training as well, looking at the application, how to use it. They will be able to make changes. The process through which they are going to make changes, that process is called change management process, for which we have to create change request ticket. That is another topic which I will be covering on Monday with your Jira, how to manage change request ticket, how to create those tickets, how to get approvals and all that, and all those things. So that part would be covered. This is your complete Agile Scrum. I'm going to give you reading today, so write it down, please. Agile have three methods: Agile Scrum, Agile XP, and Agile Kanban. As I said, there are very minute differences between these approaches. Before we start Monday class, I'll be asking you guys, have you guys read through Agile Scrum and Agile Kanban and Agile XP? And can you tell me what is the difference between Agile Scrum and Agile XP, or Agile Scrum and Agile Kanban? Everyone need to give me 1 point. There are 3-4 small minor differences. You simply need to point out that these are the differences, and then I will also go and give you some review on it. That okay, this is Scrum, this is Kanban, this is XP. Anyone have any question? You can ask me right now.
Imran, this is Anil.
Yes, Anil.
In the sprints, let's say if a project has 10 sprints or 15 sprints, for example, and we have completed sprint 1, 2, and 3, and the customer has technological change or compliance with the government rules and regulations. Now customer comes to you and say that the sprint 1 has to be changed. Is this kind of scenario possible, and what would you do?
Very possible. This is the only reason we are working in Agile environment. Customer can tell me I want to change sprint 1. Now it is not going to hurt me because I have not developed these whatever 25% of application using 3 sprint. I have not developed it all together. It is not integrated with each other. It is a separate small effort which I've done. So only I have to go and make changes to sprint 1. But to follow this, to get this process done, you have to go through change management process and CMT team. Approvals need to be taken. They need to understand one thing: if they want to make changes, we might need more time, we might need more resources, because we are currently working on the projects. Maybe we need one more BA or one more developer, and if this change is going to be feasible or not feasible. So all these things are discussed. A change request ticket is created, analysis is done by the development team and BA team. That analysis is shown back to the business users, and if everything goes well, if ticket is approved, then we can cater to those changes.
Okay, that's fair enough. But if you take the example of automobile, and engine is a total one big project of the sprint, and the engine completed, and you're moved on to the transmission, or you're moved on to electronics. So in your opinion, the engine project is already completed, but because of technological changes, now there has to be change in the engine. So can you go back to that, is what my question was.
Yes. So when you say engine is an epic, okay, which is not going to be done in one sprint. Epic mean a major effort, major part, which cannot be done in one sprint. So that mean engine can be done or should be done maybe in 3 sprints or 4 sprints. Now within which sprint they want to make change, that is the question. It is not going to impact the whole engine. Your epics are going to be broken down into smaller user stories, and then they will be done. So major components, if I'm saying the application is going to be divided into major component, that does not mean each component need to be completed in one sprint. You only have 2-week timeline. Then further that major component is going to have multiple functions underneath it. And let's suppose if under that component there are 10 functions, I might need 3 sprints to complete those 10 functions. Now within which sprint they have issue, I only have to go and change that. Do you understand this?
Yes, from what you said is clear. But what I'm trying to communicate to you is if such a change has come, which would go across all these sprints of
Yes.
that epic.
Hmm.
Let us say the epic has got 3 sprints, and a change has come which is affecting all the 3 sprints.
That is going to be very tough. That is the reason I'm saying it is going to be very tough, is that when you're giving demos to these sprint during the sprint demo meeting to these users, they are saying yes to it, they're approving everything, and we're moving forward. Now if they come back and say, oh, because this major component which has been designed in 3 or 4 sprints, we won't change in every single thing, it is going to hurt my team, it is going to hurt business as well. It is going to be a very rare case. That is why they say there have to be a proper transparency between business users and IT team. There have to be communication all the time between business users and IT team. This case which you're talking about, that may happen, but if that happen, we have to facilitate it, we have to cater to it. Now keeping in mind the time will change, the delivery of project timeline will change, and your budget will change. If the users or the clients are willing to take it, that budget change and timeline change, go ahead and do it. If they are not willing to take it and they are telling you, no, we cannot extend your budget, we cannot extend your timeline, you have to redo it, you cannot do it. It is not physically, humanly possible to finish that within the same timeline, within the same budget. So, but the case you are talking about, that is going to be a very, very rare case that they would like to change major component which have been done in 4 sprints or 3 sprints. But it can happen, and if it happens, it has to go through change management team. CMT team need to give approvals on budget, resourcing. I have to do analysis, development team have to do analysis. Eventually the ticket will be created. That ticket will have everything in terms of budget, resource analysis, and then that ticket need to go through all the major stakeholders, and they need to sign it off and approve it. Once approval is given to me, I can change everything, doesn't matter.
So in essence, what you're saying is what type of project engagement we are having. Is it a fixed bid and fixed scope, or a fixed bid and a open scope, or that comes into picture, isn't it?
That comes into picture, correct.
Okay. So my next question is from Agile standpoint. When you're talking about the users are involved and user get to know about the product. So the traditional method, there's an option called, there is a item called user training and creating user manuals. So in Agile, that's the BA does creating the user manuals and also does the user training and user demo at the end, or it is not done?
No, so good question. Most cases, even you are working in waterfall or you're working in Agile environment, most cases you will be providing the training. Now, when it says user manual, it's very simple. I have created 2 user manuals in my first project. Initially, I thought it was going to be very technical, but when they gave me FRD, that they said, okay, this is the FRD, this is the whole functionality written. You simply have to copy paste everything, but change it as a user like guide. So I just had to rephrase some words, but I utilized the whole function requirement and put it in the user manual. You might not be writing user manual all the time, but you might be involved in giving training, giving demos again and again. Usually when user acceptance testing is going on, your users might ask you that, hey Anil, do you have 40 minutes, 45 minutes? I want to set up a meeting with you. And you would say, okay, what you want me to do? So they'll say, just give us a demo about the application before we go in testing. So you'll simply go and log in, show them each and every function. If they have any question, they can ask you. And then user manuals, they might hire specific members for that. In my case, as I said, in my first project, I had to do 2 user manuals. But apart from that, in any project, even though I design a new application core product for Barclays, We did not create any user manual. They always used to say if users they want to know it, either you guys can get demo from us or simply go through our functional requirement document and you will understand it. But in some cases you might have to write it down, but if you're going to write it down, it is going to be very easy to write down user manual. You simply have to refer back to your functional requirement and you have to do some rephrasing on wordings and sentences. That's it. Copy paste most of the time.
So in a project, like you have many BAs, in your case, you said about 4 or 5 BAs. So your portion, you will carry the functional requirement document. Likewise, the others would carry FRD. So which is the document which has have all FRD included and what sequence will they do?
So if there's a third lecture on Tuesday, which will cover FRD, BRD, and user story, how to design it. If you want, I can explain thoroughly in that what you have to do and how to do it. And I will show you my FRD, my BRD of all my projects as well. And I'll walk you through what was this product application, how do we design it, and how did I write this document. So if you want, I can explain it thoroughly on Tuesday's lecture.
Certainly.
All right. Any other question, guys?